So have your calculators ready to go, right? So a couple of things that are very important when you're doing quadratic regressions, okay? So I'm gonna have my calculator there, is to know where everything is. So whenever you, so stat is like your go-to button for regressions, basically. It's it's there for statistics, by the way. So statistics is all about data, right? Points and stuff. So statistics is that stat button. You press that, and edit is where you enter points. You can enter a bunch of points here. Normally, I will show you some exceptions. I use L1 for X, L2 for Y. Sometimes when I do make like an answer key and I want to go over it later with you, I will use like L1 and L2 for my first question, and then L2, L3, L4 for the second question, and so forth. So you're not erasing your numbers, you're keeping them there. If you want to double check something, it's there. I wouldn't recommend that. You can do what you want, but most of the time L1 and L2 are the go-to columns that I use for X and Y. So again, if you want to quit, second mode gets you to the home screen. You press Stat, Enter basically, and you get to L1 and L2. That's where your X and your Y values are found. If you want to clear the column, you go to the top, hit Clear, not Delete. If you press Delete, this happens, and L1 is gone. To restore L1, you press Stat, and you want to use Setup Editor. And just hit Enter one more time to basically to execute the program. And when it says Done, if you press Stat, Edit, it's going to be back with the entries that you had there in the first place. So it's going to restore that. It's basically like your undo button. I don't know why they couldn't just have an undo button, but it is what it is. So that's how you restore everything. So anyway, so we went ahead and typed those values into L1 and L2. Those are your X and your Y values, okay? Then the other important thing is to, if you press Y equals, to turn on plot 1. And I will tell you later on a bit more about why that is important to do, but make sure plot 1 is on. If that is not highlighted, watch, the first thing you're going to notice, I'm going to deselect it, and I'm going to graph it. You will notice that the points are not visible. You can't see them. If you turn plot 1 on, which I'm going to do now, I'm going to go Y equals, turn plot 1 back on. As soon as you graph it, you're going to see them plotted right away, and the line should be going through them. Keep in mind, it's the line of best fit, not perfect fit. Why am I saying that? Sometimes you're going to enter more than those points, and they might be slightly off. Very rare, but it does happen. Okay, so it's trying to find a curve. It's trying to make your equation so that that parabola fits as best as possible. And that's why your equation looks so different. It has so many decimals. Like, go back to Y equals, right? Look at how many decimals it's using. If you were to scroll to the right, this is a very long equation, right? Very, very long equation, detailed, right? And there your A, B, and C values are there if you scroll, right? Just go left or right with your arrows, and you will see that, okay? So I'm just highlighting a few things that you should have noticed. If you, let's go back to the home screen, okay? Everybody, home screen. So second quit, I'm going to clear my home screen, everything gone. Let's go through the process of calling quadratic regression, feeding it the 3 parameters. So it needs L1, that's where the X values are located. It needs L2, and it needs a place to store the equation. So let's do that. So stat, calculate. You can press 5 for quadratic regression. Next year, you're going to use cubic regression. This year, you won't. we're only going to stick to quadratic regression. But next year, you're going to use cubic and a few more that are down this list. I'm not going to, they're all the same, done the same way, so you don't need to worry about it too much. So quadratic regression, this is what should show up on your home screen. Then you're going to go second 1, it calls L1. And if you look above 1, there is an L1 there. Okay, comma, second 2, or L2. So now you've told quadratic regression, this is where the values are. Go and get them from there. You've given it the location. And comma, one more time. This one is hard to explain, but once you know how to do it, it's like the same thing over and over again. So you press vars, the button vars for variables. You want to go to y variables. So you go sideways to highlight y variables, and then it's enter 3 times. Enter, enter, and enter one more time. Don't clear your screen. If I ever ask you to get your equation, this is where you get it from. We round it to 2 decimals. If you like to round it to 3, that's fine as long as you do it correctly, but 2 is the bare minimum. I will warn you though, sometimes if you round something to 2 decimals, it's 0.00. You can't give me that. It has to, if that happens, then you're gonna go 1 decimal, like you're gonna go to the 3rd or 4th decimal, but you cannot have just 0 for A, okay? We don't like that. So this is what we write down for our equation, okay? So A says find the equation that best models these points. So you would, don't forget your y equals, please. Grade 11, grade 12, if you forget your y equals, you lose half a mark immediately. So y equals, and then we're going to go negative 0.444. I'm going to write down 3 decimals because the coefficient A is right here. And so that's what we write down here, and then followed by x squared. And it's negative, don't forget that. And then it's going to be plus, because B is positive, plus 0.111x. And C is 2.5. So that's a positive, and it's 2.556 if you round at that 3rd decimal. So I've chosen to round everything to 3. As long as it's done correctly, you get the marks. But the bottom line is 2 is minimum. Okay, 2 is the minimum number of decimals that you want to round. So this is your equation. Yeah, so you get it from your screen here, okay? Don't go to y equals and get that one. This is where you get it from. And don't forget the x squared and the x, that's also half a mark deduction. Maybe I'll say this, because I see it all the time. Don't forget y equals, comma, or x squared or x, right? But don't forget those, because you will lose half a mark and it's unnecessary, right? Okay, so that's what you get there. Now we can answer, once you have an equation, I can ask all of the questions I asked you before, right? Remember, I used to give you an equation and I asked you all kinds of different questions, right? What is y when x is this? What is x when y is this, right? Same thing here, like you've just gone back a little further and we actually came up with the equation, and now we're going to, for example, I can ask you determine the vertex. Determine the vertex. I'm just going to keep it like that, right? Determine the vertex of this one. And which way is this one pointing, by the way? It is pointing down, right? So determine, so we're going to go second, trace and I'm going to write max, right? Because there's a high point there. So we're going to go and just go ahead and do that. So we can actually go, you can graph first if you want to press graph and just look at your graph. Then you go second, trace, maximum, right? And there's your, it just coincidentally lands on where the vertex is located. So I'm going to go to the left of it because it's asking for left boundary. Then I'm going to go over to the right and hit enter. Enter one more time. Do not move the cursor at this point. Okay, as soon as you press left or right with your arrows, it'll erase it'll erase this number, these values here. You have to redo it because you're going to be off. So do not use the arrows at this point. Write down the values. Okay. So I'll write it down. It's 0.13 and 2.56. That's the vertex. Okay. I'm going to continue on the back side of my handout. We will determine, right? Determine the x-intercept or the x-intercepts. We know that there are two. So this is just, you can write down intersect or you can write down 5. It's fine with me. So same thing as before, right? You go to y equals, you make y2 equal to 0, hit graph again, and let's go ahead and find those two. Second trace. There's no context here, so that means that you need to give me both, okay? So the first one is negative 2.28, 0, and I'm gonna go ahead and find the other one. You have to use the functions. Oh, it's 5.3, sorry. Okay, so do not use these arrows on your calculator to find it, right? Like some students will try to be like, okay, I'm gonna go there. That's about it, right? No, you have to use the functions to be exact, okay? Because close enough isn't good enough. You have to use the functions, just like you're typing your keystrokes, okay? All right, so I'm going to give you some more examples here. Oh, sorry folks, I wasn't looking at the chat. Okay. My graph looks narrow. I did everything right too. If your graph looks narrow or wider, it doesn't matter. Your window is slightly different, right? So as long as you can see the whole curve, you're fine. Okay, so Marianne already helped you out. Good. Charles says, I can't see the screen, just send. Charles, is that a question for me or? Okay. I will show you a trick in a bit. Okay. Yeah. So this one I'm going to give you a visual aid here to be able to. You need a minimum, okay, of 3 points. Okay. So we need a minimum of 3 points for quadratic regressions. If you're given 1 point plus the vertex, we can easily find a third point. And I'll put 3 dots here like that because we're going to continue that. So I'll just do a sketch here. This is not a fancy graph or anything. But 2, 5 would put you right about there. Okay, just approximately 2 sideways, 5 up. The x-intercept that we are given is somewhere here. This is -5. So if this is the vertex and this is the x-intercept, we know that this is what's happening, right? It's going like this and like down like that. So I'm going to try my best to do that. I'm going to redo this part. I'm going to label it up here. So you're given the vertex and you are given one more point. It happens to be the x-intercept, but we just call it one more point. Okay? It doesn't matter. I'll let you write this down. Copy this graph first as best as you can, and then I'll explain what's happening next. The reason why the vertex is so very important is because the vertex splits this in half, right? This is the x equal 2, right? It's the axis of symmetry. So it doesn't matter what point you have to the right or to the left of it, it has its cousin on the other side. Like exactly the same distance. So if this point, right, you know the distance from here to here, you will also know the distance from here to there. So this point right here, what we do know about this point here is that we have no idea what the x value is, but we do know what's the y value at that point. It's going to be the same one as your first point. So this is the 0. Okay. So we're going to find this value using, I don't know if you remember, the axis of symmetry formula that I gave you, you take x1 plus x2 and you divide that by 2. So we call the first point here is going to be our x1, and this is our x2, and the vertex is always our x. Okay, that's like the x value that is over here. But we know what the axis of symmetry is in this particular case because they gave us the vertex. So the x will be replaced with the 2. The x1 is -5. The x2 is unknown to us, so we'll just leave it x2 over 2. So we've plugged in everything, we don't know what the x2 is. First step is always get rid of this 2 here, so we'll multiply both sides by 2. We get 4 is equal to, this will cancel out, so you end up with -5 plus x2. You want to add 5 to both sides. So x2, which is on this side, and there's 9 on this side. And I know we're always used to the variable being on the left side, but it is really the same thing, right? Or x2 is equal to 9 if that makes you feel better, okay? But it's the same thing. So now we have 3 points, right? We found that this has to be 9. Right now we know it's 9, 0 because of this. Okay? And think about it. Let's check. Does this make sense? How many units, if this is your 2 mark here, right? Because it's x equal to 2. From 2 to 9, how many units are we talking about? From 2 to this point. That's 7 units, right? This way. Now let's check. Is it also 7 units from 2 to -5? Yes, it is, right? Because it's 5 and another 2. So this is 7 units. And this is also 7 units, even though my graph is probably not the best, okay? It doesn't show that it's symmetric. But that's a way of double checking, right? Like, it should be the same distance on both sides of the axis of symmetry, okay? All right, so now this is very long. You will, after a while, know exactly, like, you just do it. You won't even graph this. You'll just know what to do, okay? Okay, so let's come up with our 3 points. Okay, order does not matter as long as you keep the coordinates together. So we could say -5, 0, 2, 5, and our last addition to the points, which is 9, 0. So these are my 3 points. So these are coordinates, right? These go together, these go together, these go together. This goes into L1. I always encourage you to do that. This is telling me that you're actually understanding what's supposed to happen. We will do the quad reg. L1. No, I don't need you to do this. Quad reg. I forgot what I used to do. Sorry, 1 second, guys. Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing here. I apologize if I make you erase, but it's stat calc quadreg. That's all you need to write down when you're doing a regression, okay? Stat, calc, quadreg, and then you write down the equation, which we're going to do together. So take our calculator. So after a while, you're going to jump back and forth between having to use quadratic regression and me giving you the equation. So I'm going to go y equals, I'm always going to check if right now I need plot 1 to be on. How do I know that? I'm performing a regression, so I need it to be on. If you would like to clear all the y's, let's do that. Let's get rid of whatever is in the y's, all gone. So this is what I'm checking first. I'm mainly concerned about the plot 1. I need it to be on, and I'll show you why in a bit. Now you're going to press stat, edit, right? And we're going to enter our values there. I'm going to go to the top, hit clear, enter, go over, clear, enter. That's just so you don't mix up the previous values with what you're doing, which happens quite often, okay? So -5, enter, 2, enter, 9, enter, move over, 0, 5, 0. This is what you should have here. As soon as you have that, you can actually immediately go stat, and now instead of edit, you're going to go to calculate. You're going to press 5. You're going to press second 1, comma, second 2, comma, vars, y vars, enter, enter. Now you're seeing that, right? Enter one more time. Let's write it down before we graph it, okay? So it's negative 0.102x squared, and then it's positive 0.408x plus 4.592. However, this is what I was going to say earlier. Do not enter this equation into y1. y1 in your calculator should have the whole thing in it, all decimals. Okay, that's why I make you copy it into y1 so that it's there and we're all dealing with the same equation. Because sometimes if some of you round to 2 and some of you to 3 and you enter that into y1, our answers will be different. If you just paste it, then we're all having the same answers. Now let's hit graph. And there it is. Is everybody seeing the graph? You should all be able to still see the graph. There will be a moment in a bit where you're not going to be able to see it. I'll make sure of it. And then I'll show you the trick, okay? Our points are there. It's going through those points. If you by any chance have one of these points like way over here, and it's going through and it's just way off, you probably entered a wrong point. You made a mistake as you were typing it in, so you got to double check. I will tell you, check your L1 and L2 values. How would I do that? Stat, enter, check L1 and L2. Just double check with your paper, because I might give you up to 8 points to enter. And the more points you enter, the more chances of you getting it wrong. Okay, so quit. You can have the graph if you want. Vertex, we already know what it is, so I can't ask you that. The x-intercepts, we already know what they are. I can't really ask you that. I could ask you for the y-intercept, which is this, right? So we'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I think I might do one more. Yeah. Just gonna grab another piece of paper. And then I have a worksheet for you, which you should have. So we'll try our best to graph this, because that's quite common that you'll be given a graph and you have to get it from the graph. So I'll make sure this one looks a little nicer than the one before. I think it's so I'm using a scale of 3 here and a scale of 5 here. Oh yeah, sorry. This is supposed to be -6, right? So -3, -6, -9. That's better, right? 3, 6, yeah. Thanks for that. Oh, you're getting an error, Charles, on the previous one? Did you type in the equation manually? Or no? Did you? No, don't type it in manually. That's go stat. If you put in a -5, will it complain? Okay. So you used the negative instead of the minus for your points, right? You're supposed to use the negative, yeah. And when you're doing it into L1, if you use a minus, it will complain. So it's not that. Are you getting the error when you're about to graph it? And plot 1 is on? And are the equations all clear that are in there, or do you have this equation in there right now, the one I have? So you're not even able to perform the regression, right? Like if you have this on your screen, as soon as you press enter, it'll give you an error. Okay. Go to y equals and clear whatever's in there right now in y1. And go zoom 9. Do you see points? Okay, now go back to your home screen and perform the regression again. You can just go arrow up if you've already performed it and just copy. Does it do it now? Hit graph. You can see it? Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to explain when that happens. I'm going to tell you that zoom 9 is the way to go. I don't know exactly why that happens, but I hope it helped somebody else out there. You're not alone, okay? We'll help you. All right, so I'm going to give you a graph. So I will give you this point right here, 0, -10. We will have a vertex at 6, -15. So 6, -15. This one here is 0, -10. And that's all I'm going to give you for sure. Okay, so we go here through the y-intercept, and then we just go out. And then we go here, a little out, and try to make it look right. Determine the equation of this parabola. Determine the equation of this parabola. So the only 2 points that I'm giving you certainly, you're certain of it, is this one here and this one here, the vertex. So what I need you to do here is don't guess what this point is. You have to use the what I was just showing you. Okay, you know that this one has a cousin across, right? There's the line that splits this in half. So we know that there's a line here, right? This is the same height, so we're gonna find this guy, which we know that it's -10. We just don't know what this is just yet. Okay, because remember, it's symmetric. It doesn't matter which height, where you cut this. These 2 points, right, are exactly the same distance from the center. So we're going to call this x1, we're going to call this x2, and this is our x. Sometimes you can just guess what it is. Like let's just guess what this one would be. If it's from here to the center, it's 6 units, right? Because you're at 0 here and you moved 6. So that means that it should be another 6 to get to the other side of the parabola. So we're expecting this to be 12, right? Okay, so it's okay to do that. It's okay to just know what it is and make your table. So what we're going to do here is still use this one. And I know that this is 6. X1 is 0 over 2. We don't know what x2 is. We multiply both sides by 2. That cancels. You get 12 is equal to x2. You're done. Oops, cut you off there. Sorry, folks. Right, multiply both sides by 2 to cancel that 2 there. You get 12 here, and this is already 0, so it's even easier than the one before. Therefore, third point is 12, 0. 12, -10. Careful there. Okay, it's 12, -10 because it's the same height as before. So now we have our x and our y, and we're going to come up with the 3 points. Order does not matter, but I'm going to start with the left. So 0, -10, 6, -15, and 12, -10. Notice that the -10 shows up twice. That is fine. That's what we expect. I box this in and just say that this goes into L1, this goes into L2. Stat, calc, quad reg. Next you're going to have to worry about, is it cube reg, is it, so forth. And we're going to go ahead and come up with our equation. Sometimes I don't even ask you to graph it. You just come up with the equation, you're done. So let's go ahead and do that. Stat, edit. I'm going to clear what's in there. That's 0, 6, 12, -10, -15. And this one will probably be an issue for us. So now I'm going to perform my regression, and I'll show you the shortcut now. This is the shortcut, so you don't have to do what I showed you, and that's the beauty of these yellow calculators. If I go back to my home screen, I'm going to go arrow up and look for the last time I've used this. Because, right, we've changed what's in L1 and L2. We still want it in Y1, so we can reuse it. So hit enter to copy it, and then enter one more time to perform that regression. That saves you a lot of time. 1.7. It's negative. Watch out for that. Minus 10. I expected this to be minus 10 because my y-intercept is negative 10, right? So you can always check if this is right. And it's pointing up, so A is positive. Now graph it. Oh, we don't quite see it, right? Okay, you can change your window, yes, but I will show you why I want you to turn plot 1 on. And we can now use a function in Zoom, okay, a feature in Zoom. So press Zoom, everybody, and go to 9, like Zoom 9. It says Zoom stat. That should kind of be, that stat should be, that should tell you something, right? So Zoom stat, and it will, this is what it does, okay? Whatever is into L1 and L2, it will try to make sure those points show up on your screen. But it will not solve all of your problems, okay? Sometimes if you cannot do a quadratic regression, do Zoom 9. I will like Zoom 9 is the way to go. And then you open that window more if you want to see more. So for example, I want to see more up here. So then you go to window and you go to Y max. I want to see past the X axis if you ask me. So I'm going to go 20 or something positive. Because Zoom 9 only cares about the points you've entered, but we care about more than that. So now you see slightly more up top. We also want to see a bit more to the side. So I'm going to decrease my X-min and increase my X-max accordingly. So X-min, I'm going to go negative 20. X-max, I'm probably going to go 40 just to make sure it fits. And again, you don't have to have the same, the window values do not affect your answers. Okay? So there it is. There's the whole parabola right there. Yeah. Okay. So I think at this point, I'm going to hand it over to you. If you can find this handout right here, it says quadratic regressions, because the textbook has like 0 on regressions. They just expect you to know, right? So I made this handout. And if you apply everything I've just shown you, you should be able to do this no problem. Maybe a few problems along the way. Yeah, window and little nuances. So, oh, the backside already has a word problem. I will still assign it because I have a feel, I know you should be able to do this already. Okay? But for now, look for this handout right here. I'm gonna freeze that.